Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. I haven't spent much time in here lately because of the whole kitchen project, but today we're going to start building cabinets. So real quick, I wanted to just show you again. I mentioned this in the previous video. My buddy Joe at Designer's Touch Kitchen and Bath Studios reached out to me and said, let me help you design your kitchen. And I gave him some measurements and he did this whole beautiful drawing for me. Really gave me the place to start. If you got the 3D models and then we've got the floor plans and we've got sketches and stuff. Now, he actually sent me 2 copies of this, so one of them is in there perfect and nice. This is the important one though. It is covered with my electrical drawings and notes to myself and plans on how I'm going to build some of this stuff. So this is the working copy that I keep marking on. But for today, what we're concerned about is we're going to start just putting together the bodies of the cabinets. And if I start counting, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the island has 2 in it. So a total of 10 lowers, and we're actually nixing this one for now. We may add that later if we decide we don't want it, but after discussing it with Katie, we're just not going to do that right off the bat. So we're going to have 1, 2, a corner cabinet, which I haven't worked out how to do yet, so let's not count it. 3, 4, 5 total uppers. So I need to cut materials here for 10 lowers and 5 uppers. And what's nice about that is all the lowers and all the uppers will have, the lowers will all have the same side panels and the uppers will all have the same side panels. So with my big pile of plywood here, I just have to start batching out same size pieces so I have enough to start building all these cabinets with. So this is all 3/4 inch UV pre-finished plywood. Maple veneered plywood. You're only gonna see it inside the cabinets. So the fact that it doesn't match the face frames doesn't bother me very much. You'll only see it when you open a cabinet. And in our case, most of our lowers are gonna be drawers. So you'll never actually see the inside of a drawer cabinet. The face frames are gonna be hackberry. We've got a stack of hackberry drying out in the barn. This is actually lumber that we picked up. I've talked all about this on the podcast on We Built a Thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll have to go back a few episodes there and listen to that one. But what's interesting about hackberry is that there's some pretty huge color variations. We got really, really blonde. We've got the really nice grays, and this is what we were shooting for. And then sometimes this will even have green or even pink streaks in it. I've seen some really crazy stuff in hackberry. We really liked this gray color, and we were hoping that our whole stack of wood was going to be more like this, and then we could just put a clear coat on it and be done. We didn't want to have to stain things. Unfortunately, most of our pile looks like this. This is a yellow, way more yellow than we want, probably a little ash colored or even a little bit pine, just a different grain. But so unfortunately, most of it looks like this. We want it to look like this. Well, my in-laws are actually building cabinets at the exact same time out of the exact same pile of lumber in my barn. And my father-in-law ran out and tested a bunch of different stains and found a stain that can turn this into matching this almost perfectly. If you held them side by side, you could kind of tell the difference. But at a whole kitchen at a distance, you'll never know it was actually stained and it's not just this natural color. So we're gonna have hackberry doors, drawers, and face frames, and maple veneered pre-finished plywood. And today's job is to batch out the components for the cabinet bodies. For the construction style for this, I'm gonna try something a little different than the cabinets I've built in the past, mostly to save on materials a little bit. See, normally you'd have a 36-inch tall cabinet, which brings us to about here. There's your 36-inch, but you're gonna have an 1.5 inch counter, so you'd have to cut your cabinet body to 34.5. I don't know if you know math like I do, but 34.5 and 34.5 and 34.5 does not make 3 different cuts on a single sheet. You only get 2 and then you get some waste. What I'm gonna do is, and the reasoning for that is you would also include the toe kick. So you'd have a little bit of something like this built right into this panel. So you'd cut that out, and because of this extra space to make the toe kick and that total height, you end up with all the waste that we talked about down here. What I'm gonna do differently is make all of my cabinet bodies without a toe kick. So I'm gonna make 30-inch cabinets, and if you know anything about math like I do, 96 inches with 30-inch boards means I get 3 full rips on this or cross cuts on this with 6 inches extra instead of 11 inches short or whatever that math is, because I know math really, really well. So now, instead of the waist, I get some bonus, and because this is 48 inches wide, and they're going to be 23¼ inch rips, so there's going to be a little bit of waist on the side, but otherwise I get a cabinet, a cabinet, and a cabinet. I get 3 full side panels, 3 full cabinets worth of side panels out of a single sheet with that little bit of extra 6 inch down here. And then I'll have to come up with bottoms, and then we'll have this extra stuff that'll end up making strips for the tops. But what we really end up with then is our perfect cabinet body. And then when it comes to installation, I can use a lot more of this extra leftover stuff or cut up scraps or whatever and build toe kick only boxes. So they will be 3 inches to 4 inches shallower than the cabinet bodies themselves. And then I can cut those to be whatever height I need them to be, and I can actually level the toe kicks out ahead of time so that when I come in to put my cabinet boxes on top of the toe kick boxes, these should just drop in and already be perfectly level because I've already pre-leveled the toe kick boxes separately. Then these go in, they get bolted to the wall, they get screwed down into the toe kick, and I feel we've done a better job of utilizing the material here. If I had a bigger table saw or more space or even an assistant to help me guide material, maybe I would try to cut these on the table saw. But because I don't, it's just going to be easier to mark out my 30 inches. And because I'm going to trust the factory edge, I'm going to cut it from both ends. And we'll go right here back at 30. And whoop, stop twisting. There. So now I have marks on either end. And I can take my track saw and line up to those marks. And I'll make my cut here, and then I'll flip it over, I'll make my cut there, and then I'll have to make one more cut on this panel. But maybe on this panel, it'll be manageable enough. I'll get the last size done at the table saw. Yeah, that'll work. Well guys, if you've been following along with the whole project, you probably noticed that last week I did not get a video out, and that's actually the first time since the start of this whole kitchen renovation thing. So I'm pretty happy that in, what are we at, 12 weeks now, 13 weeks now, I've only missed 1 week. And that was because last week, which was the start of cabinet building, also went alongside of the annual family vacation. So I only had about 2 days worth of actual work time last week, and then we jumped in the car and we drove to northern Wisconsin and spent a couple of days at a lake house fishing and swimming and generally eating too much and having a good time. So I didn't get the video done, but we got back from that and now I am making some progress. Let's take a look around and see what we've got going on here. Let's start here. This is one complete cabinet. So this is how it's going to come together. We'll just take a quick look at that. This is a 36-inch wide when you consider the face frame of it. And I'm going to have 2, 4, 6 of those. I think I have 6 of those when all is said and done. So the construction is really simple. Butt joints. All I'm doing is holding it flush here, holding it flush here. This is actually standing on its side when I'm doing it. And pin nailing it so that it's held together, and then coming back with a countersink bit and running a few screws. The top doesn't need to be a full sheet, so this is just scraps left over from breaking down the plywood. And then at the bottom, it is a full sheet because this is going to be the actual bottom of the inside of the cabinet. Some of these are going to have drawers, so you'd never see this anyway. Under the sink, which is that one, it's 1.5 inches wider. I'll get into that later. It doesn't really matter at this point. But that one will have doors, so you kind of did need to see the entire bottom needs to be a full sheet. Plus the way it's going to rest on the toe kick boxes later. Full sheets at the bottoms of these cabinets. I've got 3 more of this size ready to go right here. We've got the next sides ready to go. Those are also all base cabinet sides. And you can see one thing I didn't film at any point was the pocket holes. In all of the time I have been making cabinets, I've never actually pocket hole screwed the face frames on. I've always just built the face frames, held it to the front, ran pin nails in, and then either filled in those pin nail holes or forgot about it. Didn't care. Doesn't matter. In fact, the entire man cave downstairs, all of those pin nailed face frames just show the pin nail, and I just didn't care to fill them. In this case, Katie was going to want them filled, and I had the time and the production going here. I went through and made pocket holes in the forward facing edge of all of this stuff. And what's really nice is that the way these will assemble, I won't have to fill a single one of these holes. I don't need to do a plug hole on any of them because this will have counter on it. This will have either cabinet up against the side of it or a decorative hackberry panel on the side in the event that this is a show side. The island is going to be made up of 2 of that size cabinet. So one side will have a hackberry panel, the other side will have another cabinet butted up against it, and then the outside of that will have another decorative, a hackberry panel. By the time these are completely finished, those pocket holes will be completely hidden, and the face frame will look very nice and clean, and the inside will not have any pocket holes on it because they're all to the outside. Let's move over to here. One thing, if we look at this right here, these are, come on, focus. There we go. This is a pre-finished sheet of plywood, but to get glue to stick, I had to sand the finish off just a little bit. And to make sure I did that without going too far, I made this quick little jig. The sandpaper is the thickness of a sheet of plywood, and I can take it here. It's actually on this face, flip you over. Right here, this just runs back and forth a couple times. I got to use 2 hands to do it, but that'll actually remove enough of that finish that I can get wood to glue to wood. And now I know it's some end grain here. It's not perfect, but it's going to be a lot stronger having that finish removed. And then you can see here that sanding line does not continue through here, and it's very clean. There, this is a better example. You can see down here that sanding line doesn't extend above the base sheet here, and so you don't even know that that took place. So it's very clean on the inside. I have 1, 2, come on, focus again. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes now assembled, finished. I've got my process figured out. And now I have the rest of the base cabinets to do. And these are all of the uppers. There's actually not much to upper components. It's kind of surprising. The amount of space they take up when they're finished is a lot more than the amount of space they take up when they're stacked. So then the other thing to take a look at is I cut rabbets through all these when they were flat to make it really, really easy to put a back panel on here. And all of that is going to be this 1/4 inch. It's actually an MDF core with a maple veneer, but that's going to work pretty well. I did spread these out and spray finish on those just before I left for my trip. So this was all covered in sheets of 1/4 inch plywood that now that I have this assembled, I know I could do the math and I could just subtract the 3/4 inch and I could cut the panels down to size so they'd fit right in here, but I wanted to just not think that hard. So as I'm assembled here, I can just take a measurement on the inside of this space and start cutting those things out to tack in there after. Once I have all of these cabinets assembled, and I'm going to stash them out into Katie's garage because I'm going to run out of room in here, then I can start cutting material for face frames and making face frames to fit and getting them attached to this. So that'll be another project for another day. For today, I'm actually going to call it quits on this video. You've seen enough. I've rambled enough. I'll have to start finishing this up and move on to the next stuff. The next stuff being, while I was on this vacation, Dave came back over. I gave him a key. He let himself in, and he finished the electrical stuff he wasn't able to get done the first time. So it's done now. I am waiting on an inspection. We're this close to being able to spray foam. That's really great. That's been the part that's kind of been stressing me out. Not the process of spray foaming, but not having it done yet has been stressing me out. So I'm going to be way more relaxed as soon as that gets done. That's about all I'm going to talk about this week. Thank you guys very much for watching. We'll get another one out next week. Hopefully you'll get to see some spray foam. If not, we're going to be really, really close at that point. So thanks for watching. Links below if there are any. I honestly don't remember what I've shown or talked about in this entire video. But we'll see you next time.